snap.
Okra snap. That's a new word. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Okra snap.
All right. Well, we're going to get yours, Charlie. So we're going.
Yep, we are recording. Whether you want it or not, Charlie, we're recording now. So
Poznek.
Yes.
Remember what I said about that's her gift? You'll tell her what it is, and then she'll just pronounce it the way that she wants to.
We have a whole blooper reel of me trying to say names. Okay, Poznek.
Do you want to spell it out phonetically?
No. Let's do this.
Okay.
This is the Messy Back End, where experts share customized business advice and tips about all the messy stuff that goes on behind the beautifully branded front end of entrepreneurship. This is where most businesses fail, so we're here to help you save time, make money, and succeed.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you all so much. We have a wonderful show for you today. Are you confused about your business's finances? You are not alone. The truth is that if you speak to just about any business owner, you'll find that they have frustrations around their finances. It's not easy keeping up with everything you need to know regarding the mess of finances. But be aware, ignorance is not bliss when it comes to your business and your business's finances. At the end of the day, we all just want to serve our purpose, live our passion, and of course, it has to be financed, right? So Benjamin Franklin said, "Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship."
That's the truth. On our expert segment today, we're going to be speaking with Charlie Poznek. Charlie is the COO of Do It Marketing, a firm that helps experts build and grow their business. He really enjoys being COO, as most days present different and interesting challenges. It's also very rewarding when clients share their success on a regular basis. Charlie is also a former podcaster, having done a few episodes, 428 to be exact, back in the earliest days of podcasting.
So basically, we've got an OG podcaster here.
Yeah.
And you'll hear real questions and stories from real entrepreneurs with real messy backends. And as an added bonus for the Messy Backend Exposed, our expert Charlie will not only share his experience, expertise, and the tools he suggests to get your backend cleaned up, but he will also expose the truth about where the revenue comes from and where the expenses go.
And if you're an entrepreneur with a messy backend and you would like to submit your story or question for our experts, give us a call at 801-810-6726 or visit us at themessybackend.com. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of The Messy Backend, brought to you by our digital marketing agency, Lock and Load Marketing, where if it tires you out, you can hire it out. We wanted to take a minute and stop and thank you for being such great listeners.
Seriously, we can't do this without you. Thank you so much for listening and supporting us these last 2 years. We've loved sharing our expert guests, our stories, our experiences, our embarrassing, messy backend bloopers with you. We've just loved everything about this podcast. And if you love the show as much as we do, we want to hear from you. Leave a review on your favorite podcast platform or email us at hello@themessybackend.com. Who knows? Soon we may just have cool branded swag to give out to our top fan.
That's going to be super cool. And don't forget to subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. You can find all of those links at themessybackend.com/subscribe. So never miss an episode because they're pretty fun. Then check us out on Facebook and YouTube for video episodes. Now on to our expert, Charlie Poznek, for his expert advice. Don't mess your seat, folks. Here we go.
So today we have a few messy backend questions submitted by our listeners that we would like to cover. We're going to go with the flow and talk about how to make more money. But here are the questions. We've got, do I really need a budget? Are all expenses the same? How do I know if I'm pricing my services and products the same? Do I really need to look at detailed financial reports every month? So Charlie, we've got a couple questions here. Is there a specific one that we want to tackle first?
Yeah, the answers are no, yes, yes, no.
Awesome. Cool. End of podcast. Thanks, guys. Take care. Cheers. Awesome.
Well,
let's elaborate a little bit.
Do you need a budget? I guess it depends on what kind of business you have. If you're a coach and you do one-on-one coaching and you generate $5,000 worth of revenues a month and you have a couple $100 worth of software subscriptions and you're cool with that, no, I don't think you do need a budget, let alone looking at financial statements and things like that. For our business, we're a 7-figure business. We have multiple streams of income. And when I say multiple streams of income, like affiliate income can be one of them, but it could be affiliate income from 10 different people. I personally think it's important to know as specifically as possible, granularity is a big thing with me, as specifically as possible where your revenues are coming from and where your money's going to. So, do you need a budget? I think it's relative, but if you are running a larger business or looking to build a larger business, I think it is important to have some kind of a budget. I'd like to just digress for a little moment about the term budget. Different people will define that different ways. I personally, when I think of budget, I don't think, okay, I'm going to budget, $27 for email service provider in this. I look at just, more of a kind of a chunk, having it be a bigger chunk, and then have your expenses sort of fall where they are, but keeping track of them, if that makes sense. I want to make sure I get that across. So it's not, I'm not advocating I'm only allowed to spend this much this month. This is how much I'm budgeting for myself to spend this month, and then just keep track of where that falls. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you can, because it's possible that it can ebb and flow as well. There are some set expenses that you just, like your email marketing, that's going to be, but then you may be looking at ads, or like whenever Nate and I do speaking, and you yourself as well, that expense is going to go up a little bit when you go to speak somewhere. Of course, now we can't go anywhere, but, and then it'll kind of flow around client work and things like that. So yeah, that makes sense to me. I think you need to have a, like you said, just a baseline kind of, this is where we are kind of thing.
Yeah. And I also like to kind of let the jargon go away. Budget and income statement and financial statements. You want to keep track of where your money's coming from, where your money's going to, and then what's left over. It's very simplest form.
I love that. Just kind of simple buckets, almost just general areas of, and then look at it more like an accountability side of things. Don't be like, oh, I can't spend over $200 in this. It's, oh, I spent $400 that month. Do I really need to spend $400, or was that a mistake? Should I keep doing that? Is that kind of what you're suggesting?
Yes, exactly. And then also, as far as keeping track of it, a lot of people get hung up on, I got to learn QuickBooks or Quicken or Xero or something like that. I, for my whole life, from a personal basis and a business basis, keep track of my expenses on an Excel spreadsheet. I've tweaked it over the years and I've gotten it to where I am now. It's very simple, very straightforward. And if you're even not good with spreadsheets, just keep it on a piece of paper, paper and pencil. I mean, again, once you grow and you're a 7-figure business, if you don't want to deal with Quicken and you don't want to deal with spreadsheets, hire somebody to do that for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because actually one of our favorite bookkeepers, Cassie Kramer, came on, and that was what she said specifically. She said, just use a spreadsheet. Here's how you set it up: income, expenses, dates, and where, the name of whatever it is. And she's like, just make it super simple. And so I love that, because I have tried to use QuickBooks myself. I'm not a bookkeeper. Our saying here on, on the podcast and at Lock and Load Marketing, my digital marketing agency, is, if it tires you out, hire it out. And bookkeeping is like one of the top things, like one of the first things that I think businesses should hire out is get that dang bookkeeping, because it's critical to your business. It really is to make sure you're at least aware of what's going on and that you're not overspending. But come on, I mean, don't spend all day.
Well, this is a really important thing too, because when I joined Do It Marketing, David Newman, who's the founder of Do It Marketing, I mean, he runs a very successful business and, was more concerned with what's the bottom line. Wasn't really granularly looking at the, where the money's coming from, where it's going to. So as a result, he's had a bookkeeper since pretty much day one. And if left to their own avail, my opinion is a bookkeeper will give you generic financial statements and they'll lump things together. Again, I keep saying this word granularity. So one of the things I did in working with our bookkeeper is to kind of break it out. I don't want to see, revenues this, like where the hell did the revenues come from? Or, what are the expenses? You're lumping them in advertising and promotion. Does that mean Facebook ads, and is that an overhead expense? Is it a variable expense based upon the stuff that's coming in? So I think it's important. I like the concept of working with a bookkeeper, but I think it's important for them to be giving you what you want to see.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great way of putting it. It's like you get to dictate that relationship because you're hiring them.
Yeah.
You get to say, hey, these are what I want to see. I want to see these expenses. I want to see how much, each one of these revenue streams are costing me. Is it a loss leader or is it, is it a way that I'm actually making money? Maybe the most profitable thing in my business, I didn't think was the most profitable, but it really is because the amount of money coming in versus the amount of money going out. Maybe one of the things that you think is small actually makes the most sense. Let's focus some energy into that and grow that more, and you can't see that without looking at the numbers.
Yeah. And with due respects to our bookkeeping colleagues, I have talked to bookkeepers who have essentially said to me, I'll tell you what's best for you. I'll tell you what you want to see. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit.
Anybody that you hire for your business tells you that you didn't hire the right person. I guarantee it because it's your business. I am shocked, actually, every time I go to look at the back end of a business. One of the first things I ask them is, where's your money coming from? What's your best sellers? And they don't know where their money's coming from. And to me, that just, put expenses to the side. If you don't know where it's coming from, where to put your energy into, I am just shocked, right off the bat, they don't know what's making the money and what's not making the money. And that, to me, the money coming in is the best part. It's the funnest part to calculate, So I don't know, it's surprising.
Well, Nate was alluding to this a few moments ago too, in that you could have $3,000 come in this month in one-on-one coaching, and that business all came from referrals. And you could also do $3,000 in group coaching, and that all came in because of Facebook ads. So in one scenario, your margin is sky high, you're taking your time out of the equation. You essentially made $3,000, but that other $3,000 in revenue could have cost you $2,000 in Facebook ads. So it is important to know what's coming in. It's important to know where it's coming in, but then also, tying any direct expenses to that as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. To tie the specific, this specific ad is for group coaching. This is how much I made from group coaching. This is how much I spent on it. That's pretty key. Yeah. I don't know that I've ever actually looked at it from that. Of course, I don't spend a lot on my business. Like, one of the things I actually pride myself in is my business costs me $134 a month. At its base, because I don't want to, if I want to take a month off, I don't want to have that outgoing expense, wear me out. So I don't spend a lot of money that way, but then I'll have a speaking engagements where I lost 8 this year. You
lost 8 speaking engagements? Wow.
Gigs last year. So there went that out the window, but I knew right away, like, how much I would spend on each of those 8 speaking gigs. And in between, I had just the base minimum, but I think that's like a mic drop. That's good for me.
Well, also with respect to you kind of alluded to fixed expenses. So I'm a big proponent of keeping your fixed expenses as low as possible. So I'm defining fixed expenses as you wake up in the morning, the first day of the month, you go sit in the corner and you don't move until the last day of the month. Right. You're paying rent, you're paying your email service provider, you're paying your insurance. You're not paying for food or as much for food or gas for your car, things along those lines. So keeping those expenses really low, I think, is just general good practice.
Great practice. I love it. Yes.
And then also, as it relates to expenses, this is a mic drop for me. If you think about it, my suggestion is to look at every expense as an investment. So if you take money and put it in a mutual fund as an investment, you want a return on your investment. Well, if you're spending money or incurring an expense, I suggest you look at that as an investment and figure out if that's giving you some return on your investment. This has nothing to do with lead quizzes. I'm just popped into my head, but lead quizzes, maybe it's $49 a month. I'm not suggesting you do or do not use lead quizzes. I'm suggesting that if you do use it, in some way, shape, or form, track it. If somebody comes in to your email list from that, tag them in some way, shape, or form. So you can tell at the end of the day how much revenue came from utilizing that service. If after several months or a year or 2 years, nothing's coming in, well, maybe that's not a really good investment. Maybe you should stop using that. Now, some people will say, well, Charlie, you never know. 5 years from now, somebody who came in from a quiz 5 years ago, can give you some revenue, some income. But, within reason, I think if after a period of time, you're not seeing any direct return from that, maybe you should rethink about that investment / expense.
I think that goes to also knowing what your customer value is, your lifetime customer value. If you know how much each customer is worth, how much are you willing to spend per customer? If you have 100 customers and you're saying, I only want to spend 10%, 15% on each customer, that gives you a good, strategy for what your outgoing may be. But you need to look at that in each category, whether it's the individual coaching, the group coaching, the membership, and make sure that applies to each one separately, because the outgoing for each one is going to be different as the ingoing for each one. And the like you said earlier, the amount of time it takes, right? A membership doesn't take you as much time as individual coaching, and group coaching, same thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Sheila, the term there usually, like in the finance world, is what you would call a customer acquisition cost. And you want to go through and look at that, because it's kind of like what Charlie was mentioning earlier. We have these two different groups, the one-on-one coaching versus the group coaching. And the group coaching might have, a slightly higher customer acquisition cost. But then, compare that with what you were just saying, the customer value, the lifetime customer value. You can go, oh, well, the group coaching ones have a better trade-off, because I can do, 10 of those a week as opposed to 3 with the other one. And so there is a lot of numbers involved. And that's where I think having an expert like Charlie comes into play.
And to go full circle, coming back to budgeting, if you're again, I don't want to use the term budgeting. If you're not keeping track of where the money's coming from, where the money's going to, you don't have this data with which to make appropriate decisions going forward. And you just keep on doing this and you keep on doing that. And again, if you're happy at the end of the day with what's coming to the bottom line and you don't really want to grow your business, whatever, don't worry about it.
Definitely, you cannot scale unless you know the answers to those questions. So that's one thing to take consideration. Like you said, if you're happy with where you are and you can just plug along, go for it. But if you want to do any kind of scaling, that's kind of where I found myself about 5 years ago, is that I had built a business around myself. My brand was me, my name. And I quickly realized that I hit this plateau where I couldn't grow unless I brought on a team or unless I had other people doing some of the work. And I had to really analyze my business. I remember taking Post-it notes, and I wrote on each Post-it note the different things that I had done. So I had like an 11 ebook course on starting a virtual assistant business. What was that worth? How was that going out the door? Was that bringing in clients? And then I took each thing and I put it on a Post-it note, put it on the wall. And I realized, oh my goodness, like these things that I'm spending so much time on do nothing for me. So I got rid of those and I focused more on the things that were actually making the money. That was the easiest way for me, just put it on the Post-it notes, put it on a wall. And all of a sudden you have this huge map of your business, of where it's coming and where it's going. And it just was a huge aha moment for me. So that's the first thing I do with all of my back end clients is I say, where's it coming from? Where's it going? First client I did that with, I saved her $1,200 a month in the first week. Insane.
Wow. Do you ever ask them, where does it come from? Where does it go? Where does it come from? Cotton Eye Joe?
Exactly like that. And I sing it. I'm not as boring as you. I sing it.
That's just where I thought you were going with that. I map it all out, Cotton Eye Joe.
No. So one of the other things that a lot of people that we work with, especially on the back end, is they come to us and they say, am I charging the right amounts? And that's something that kind of comes in with the finances, is you may see your group coaching flying off the shelf, but how do you know is it flying off the shelf because you didn't price it right? You know what I mean? How do you kind of figure in those, the services and the products and the pricing? And I kind of have a strategy, but I'd really like to hear yours is probably better than mine.
Well, that's, I think, as much if not more of a marketing question than a finance question. But my finance mindset answer to that question is David Newman. He's a big proponent of charging what you're worth. So it's, you would come and say, oh yeah, I'm charging $500 for this. He said, well, maybe you should charge $5,000 for that. And basically pricing based on the value that you're giving to people and the value that people are going to get from that. I mean, one of the first things, we used to focus a lot and work a lot with speakers. We still work a lot with speakers, and it's kind of rampant with speakers. Okay, I'm going to charge, $2,500. And David puts out this article that he references that if you're charging less than $5,000, a lot of people who hire speakers don't look at you as a professional speaker. So boom, you should be at $5,000, $4,900, something like that. And then depending upon your background, your expertise, what you've done before, it probably should be higher than that. So we're just really big proponents of charging, kind of what you're worth. And at the end of the day, it's about maximizing revenues. If you get 100 orders at $50, it's similar to getting 10 orders at $500. And maybe you might rather work with 10 people than 100 people. So you might seem like you're losing customers or clients, which I guess from a number standpoint you are. But at the same time, you're making a similar amount of revenue.
But you're also changing the type of clients you're bringing in too. So that goes in a lot into it. I know when I was charging, very little, the quality of clients that I was getting, it was very different than when I charged more. I remember the very first time someone contacted me and they said, we have this YouTube video that's gone totally viral. We're getting 10,000 emails a day. We turned off the video. We took it down from YouTube because we were getting so many emails. We didn't know what to do. And at the time I was going through a medical situation, and I'm like, I just didn't want to work with them because I just didn't have the mental. I said, it's going to be, it's going to be over the next 4 months. I'll give you 1 hour a month and tell you what to do. It's going to be $4,000. He says, okay. So he paid me. And so I can officially say my highest is $1,000 an hour, which I would never do again, but 1 hour a month. And we were able to, take that small little video and flip it into it. But he saw the value in me that I didn't see in myself. And I think that was very interesting. And I know that's like taking us off into a whole other episode. So we'll get back on track, but charging what you're worth goes towards the results that your clients are getting, I think.
Yes, I agree. And just to put a point on your pricing comment, it does really have a lot to do with who your target market is. If you want to service the masses and service people who are all starting up and who have little to no money, then maybe have a lower price product. If you don't want to deal with that person and you only want to deal with somebody who's making $100,000, get them to $200,000, then that requires a different strategy.
Definitely.
Another thing that I think is important on the finance side of things is to actually calculate your cost of doing business. Because then it can show you, okay, well, if these are all my costs, my expenses, then I need to be charging, maybe in like just the absurd example that Sheila was just saying, I need to be charging $1,000 an hour because of all my costs. Well, in that case, cool. I need clients that are willing to pay me that amount. But you really have to calculate out and say, okay, well, what are my costs? If your costs are a lot lower then, and when I say cost, you also have to consider in the cost of, well, how much are you going to pay yourself? You are an employee of the business in reality. So if you have a lifestyle that you say, hey, I can live on this lifestyle at, say, $50,000 annually versus $250,000, you need to figure out what that cost is. If you need to be paid 6 figures, well, then you need to figure out that cost and go, cool, every single client that I bring in needs to be at this level or else I'm not going to make that cost. Those are a fixed cost and fixed expense. I remember learning that. And when I changed my business model to seeing my own time as a cost, that dramatically changed the way that I valued my time, which dramatically changed how my clients then valued my time, which overall just kind of increased my value in a way, my happiness, how I felt like I was showing up in the world. So I think that's something very important, is calculating that cost. If you think.
Yeah, agreed. And that's one of the things I also, when I first started working with David, to try to make sure that he's engaging in activities that are the highest and best use of his time. Let's put a value in his time. Everybody put a value in their time. And if what you're doing, you can get somebody to do for much, much less, then you shouldn't be doing that. You should have somebody else doing that. So which gets into the whole concept of maybe having an assistant or something along those lines. What was the language you used, Sheila, earlier? If
it tires you out, hire it out.
If it tires you out, hire it out. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The thing is that we were talking to this bookkeeper friend of mine, which, by the way, she does bookkeeping the way that you say, with she doesn't just clump it in, probably because she's a mom of 2 little children. She understands the value of every dollar. But we were talking to her, and I had spent like almost 12 hours. I had to do this big financial report for my business for a situation that I'm in right now. And she kept saying, I call her and ask her a question, and she kept saying, I can do it for you. I can do it for you. After like 12 hours, I was like, so Cassie, how long would that have taken you? She's like, oh, maybe 2 hours. So what would have taken her 2 hours, I spent 12 hours doing poorly. And certainly if you value my time and you value her time, what would have been the smartest way to go about doing that? Obviously would have been to hire her to do it in the first place. So bookkeeping is not my thing.
What's the old saying with respect to like assistants, that you should have somebody else do it if it's something that you don't know how to do and don't want to learn how to do. So like a podcast editing. If it's something you know how to do and don't want to do, for example, podcast editing. But the key thing is, if it's something that you know how to do and you want to do it, but it's clearly not the highest and best use of your time, again, another situation where you should hire it out, which we can go back to podcast editing. You could be a real audiophile and like to do it. And if you just want to do it, fine, just do it. If we're looking at it strictly from a numbers and financial standpoint, it's probably something you should hire out.
That's a perfect example, because I feel all 3 of those things with my podcast editing. So, and it should be something that I hire out, and it's coming very quickly where I have to do that. But I love it. So I think I'm going to take us in a little bit different direction, just because I know like your background and everything, but we're going to have to cut this out because I had a question in mind for you and now I can't remember it. So I'm going to like take a second, like try and remember. So I was thinking,
just don't pause the recording.
I'm not going to pause it. I've never, just so you know, like I have never.
She never has done that.
I've never done
it. You're just like, yeah, we're recording, and so my eyes naturally just glance to the recording, and I was like, wait, it's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you a question. Now I'm trying to remember what it was, because
where were
we were talking about pricing. And services.
We're talking about virtual assistant, jobbing it out and making sure that's good use of your time.
Yeah. Right before that, it was something that I was going to switch us over. What's a topic that we need to, dang it.
Just some random talk. You want me to just pick some talk? Food.
No, because I know.
Charlie, let's talk about food.
No, because I know Charlie is like, he's like a fractured COO. So he manages like systems and processes and, right? Is that kind of what you do?
Sure.
It was, this spam people keep calling me too. And we had an Amber Alert, being distracted. Snap. I can't remember where I was going to take it, because I think we're about wrapped up with the finance thing.
Yeah. Well, I have something else I want to comment that I want to make. Can we comment now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Will Smith, the actor, he has like a 1.5-minute video on YouTube, which I'm very happy to send you guys the link. You can put it in the show notes. And it's titled Self-Discipline is the Center of All Material Success. Self-discipline is the center of all material success. So if you look at that, one could argue that budgeting, keeping track of where things are coming and going is an act of self-discipline, which would help lead to material financial success. So I always thought that that was a really great comment. Never thought of myself as being overly disciplined, but now I see the importance of that, in life in general, but specifically as it relates to what we're talking about, finances and things.
Well, when it comes to money, that definitely is something that we have to focus on, is making sure that we are being disciplined in it, whether it's doing our own bookkeeping or hiring it out, but mostly just not doing it. Like I'm pretty good at it because I hate spending money. It's a problem. Like my poor husband, he's like, we need to go Christmas shopping. And I'm like, ugh, really? Most women would be like, yeah, let's go. But I just don't like spending money in the first place.
Well, back to an earlier comment I made about, instead of like a line item, I'm going to spend this much on Christmas gifts. From a personal standpoint, I allocate myself X amount of dollars a month, and I have Y dollars in fixed expenses. Again, rent, mortgage, insurance, things like that. If I just don't do anything during the course of the month, that's what it is. So I have the rest of that to spend as long as I stay under that. And this month I may want to spend more going out to restaurants. Next month I may want to spend more on clothes or something along those lines. But it gives me some flexibility. It's kind of like, weight loss. I don't want to get too far off track here, but another material thing that happened in my life is I'm more of an alternative medicine guy than a traditional medicine guy. And I went to this naturopath and he said to me, oh yeah, I think you should stop eating sugar and dairy and this, that, the other thing. And I looked at him and I was really, really, really mad. And I said, it's just not going to happen, dude. And he took this pregnant pause and he looked at me and he said, 80%. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, 80%, just try to, do that 80% of the time. And what that did is it gave me choice of what to do. And it just opened my whole world up. It isn't this, I got to go without this. It's just, I now have a choice of what to do. So similarly, if you budget X amount of dollars, you say, this is what I have to spend this month. If you want to go out shopping, go out shopping. Or if you want to spend it, however you want to spend it, that's fine. Again, we can map this over to business, but I'm just giving you a personal example as well.
No, that's great. You actually, now that you mention it, you actually do look a little thinner than the first time I talked to you. It was, I think, early last year. So you must have had your loss during the COVID, like your loss of 50. Is it called the COVID 15? You either gained it or you lost it.
I've heard it referred to as the quarantine 15.
The quarantine 15.
Yes.
I like it.
Quarantine 15. COVID-19 stood for all the 19 pounds that I gained. So
Nate, you did
I'm
not.
I'm just kidding. I did not gain. I might have gained 19 grams, but no, not a whole lot. So no, I like that. That's a good idea. With the 80% thing.
Yeah.
Cause like I'm thinking about that. I'm trying to relate that, like how that goes back to business and like spending and stuff. But I think you're absolutely right. Because a lot of times we're like, especially when we need to make a change in our life, the change that needs to happen. And it seems like such a dramatic change. Like you were saying, you're like, I'm not going to cut out all sugars, all processed foods, all, sweet drinks. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. And Charlie, yourself enough to not lie. You're like, no, I know that's not going to happen. But then when he switches and says, can you do it 80% of the time? You're like, well, yeah. You know what? I'm strong enough I can do it 80% of the time. Like, I'm not that fat of a loser, and I'm not trying to call anyone out there, but you know what I mean? Like you're not like, oh, well, yeah, no, I can do that. I can do this 80% of the time. But you're right. It gives you these options where you go, you get to make those decisions. Every time you order a drink, are you going to, you know what, I'll just have water, or let me get another soda with the bottomless refills, type of thing. And I think we could do that same way with our business. It's just like, we don't have to necessarily say, okay, hey, with business lunches, for example, taking people out to eat, maybe you only have, $1,000 budgeted for the month. And last month you were, or it's like, we need to reduce expenses. Well, can we reduce down to 80% of that? Probably, not cutting it out entirely, but let's probably reduce that a little bit. We could probably do that. So
I have one other little pet peeve too, is if I'm talking with someone, there seems to be a lot of folks who are running businesses, especially smaller businesses and newer business owners. They don't really treat it like a business. It's sort of, okay, I'm going to start a business, and they may or may not have a legal entity set up, which I firmly believe in that. They may or may not, if they don't have that, they clearly don't have a business checking or savings account set up. But I think it's more of a reactive thing, like, okay, when something comes up that I want to engage in, I'll just put it on my credit card, or I'll just take it out of my savings. I'm not saying don't put it on your credit card or don't take it out of savings, but I'm a real proponent of funding your business. Say, I'm going to start this business. I don't care what it is, $10,000, $20,000, $40,000. I don't care if it's coming from credit cards or savings or your IRA. But when you have that, let's just say I'm going to fund my business with $20,000, then there's your budget. Like I can't be spending more than that. And if you want to engage a mentor that's charging you $20,000, I wouldn't suggest spending $20,000 there, but if they're willing to fund that and charge you $1,800 a month or something, that could become part of your budget. But I think too many people don't have that discipline. And as a result, you get the shiny object. Oh, squirrel here. Oh my gosh, here's a course on Facebook ads. I really want to do that. Oh my gosh, here's how to do challenges. And it just helps take away from the focus. So it's another reason for budgeting or funding their business with some X amount of dollars to start off with.
Tracking for sure. And you can actually go back and say, I love that you brought up the Facebook ad course. I don't know how many of those I've bought. And I look back and I'm like, I could have hired someone to run an ad for the same price as it cost me to buy a course that I didn't do, or that honestly, like, because Facebook changes their ad process every single time I went in, it would look different. So look at that when, the hiring out, but also look at, I can buy this course on how to do Pinterest, or I can pay someone to do my Pinterest for that same amount. Which one's going to make you the most money at the end of the day? Because you don't want to learn to do Pinterest. You want to do life coaching. There's been a lot of times, actually, someone would contact me and say, I want to start a virtual assistant business while I'm building my health coach business because I need to have money coming in. While I'm like, okay, so you want to build a business to make money so you can build a business to make money. Let's have a little chat about what that looks like, because you're going to fail at both if you do that, because you're going to do one thing you hate doing to try and fund the other thing you love doing. It's a wash. You can't do that.
Yeah. And even back to the budgeting and the discipline it puts forth, if you say, all right, I have this much money to spend this month and I want to take a Facebook course, and I've seen this webinar and this person's charging $1,000 for the course. It could be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it may force you to say, what other options are there for me to take a Facebook ads course? Maybe you go to Udemy and for $20, you get a Facebook ads course. Maybe it's not as good. Maybe it's better. Who knows? But at least you can get that. It's forcing you to look at other options to best utilize the money that you have.
And then use the other $980 to hire someone else to do it and put money towards the ad. $5 a day.
Or go buy clothes.
Or food.
Or
nacho fries.
No, that kind of goes back to like what you were saying about like actually treat your business like a business, no matter what stage it's in, get it set up right. And if you want to become a big business, even when you're small, do the things that the big businesses are doing. And one thing that all big businesses do are they shop around for quotes. There are so many times where businesses will reach out to me and they'll go, hey, we want you. We love what you can do. We need this, and this done. Send me a quote. And I'll send them a quote. And what's interesting is they'll look at that and they'll go, well, either, yes, we want what Nate has and we'll pay what that is, or they make that decision and go, no, we think this over here, we might be able to get some of what you're offering for cheaper, or, hey, we actually were looking for something that you can't do and it's a lot more. But do that in your own business too. Like what you were just saying with the Facebook ads. It's like somebody might be charging $5,000 for a Facebook ad course, or you can go find an ad for $47 on Udemy, an ad course. Or you can go watch YouTube videos and, so many different avenues of learning. And I'm not saying one is better or worse than another, but one is better or worse for your business. And you need to figure out what's right for your business and how you learn and what you are trying to accomplish. So I like that you brought that up.
And one other benefit of that is if somebody, say, wants to charge you $10,000 for something and you look and you see, well, this is how much money I have. most people don't even think, well, how about if I pay you $3,500 a month over the next 3 months? So the person's making a little bit of premium by financing it for you. And it also helps with your cash flow.
Right.
It's just another little tip that people could use.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Well, Charlie, you're absolutely brilliant. I think I met you about a year ago, and I've learned so much from you. One of the things that I learned from you was every time we talk, at the end of our phone calls, you ask me, what are you doing and how can I help you? And I don't know how much you know that that's changed my life, because I try and do the same thing now where I'm speaking with someone and I try and make that effort. And then my next thought is, how does Charlie do so much for so many people? And it's just like coming on the podcast or following up with an email or something. And so I do want to make sure that everybody knows that about you, that you're probably one of the most kind, generous, giving people I've met. Not only that, but you're brilliant with marketing and finance and just all around nice guy. So thanks for coming on the show today.
My pleasure.
Yep. Thanks, Charlie. So Charlie, what can we do for you?
Wow. Didn't expect that.
See, now you know how I feel every time you ask me that.
I know, right? Being in the hot speech.
I'll tell you. If if anybody wants to learn about Do It Marketing, what we do, we have a lead magnet. If somebody wants to go there, it's doitmarketing.com/manifesto. It just gives a good background overview of our business to learn a little bit about what we do. How about that?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah, we'll definitely share that around for sure.
Perfect.
Cool.
Wonderful. Well, Charlie, thanks for sharing your knowledge with us today and helping our listeners to be able to kind of get their ducks in order for finances and understand how to get those in order. And that's a very important thing. So thank you for all of your wonderful knowledge today.
My
and
pleasure.
being on our show. Yep, thanks.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of The Messy Backend. We know you can't get enough of us. So have us on your podcast or have us speak at your next event. Visit themessybackend.com/speaking and send us your event details.
It's true. We love speaking. And we also want to thank our sponsor, Yes Women's Network, where you will find the connections you need to achieve your dreams. Find out more at yeswomensnetwork.com.
Also, our advertiser, PodServe FM. We couldn't do it without them. They get your podcast hosted and published quickly and easily. Visit them at podserve.fm/messy to find out more.
And a thank you to our advertiser, ThriveCart. They are the #1 shopping cart software that grows your income from existing traffic with high converting checkout pages, upsells, and affiliate campaigns. Watch the video for how simple this cart solution is at themessybackend.com/cart.
Once again, don't miss an episode. Head on over to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe today.
Cool. That was a good episode.
Yeah, I'm glad I recorded it.
I know, right?
Next time I have a Zoom call with Sheila, I'll just make sure I look in the corner and see if it's recording or not, right?